Hey there, folks. So, last episode we finished up with our real basic setup for, where is it? The creature factory here. This is just going through getting some creature information for our random spawning that I want to add in. Um, as I mentioned at the end of last episode, I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to be going with this one. I am going to be taking a bit of a turn, and we are going to do a bit of a cleanup pass on the project. This is just going to be getting a few things that have sort of sat there in our to-do list. As you can see, it's not huge. There's what, 20 items in there, 15, and start working on cleaning some of that up. So, a couple of things I did between episodes that I want to cover is I did change our function library, where is it? Singleton functions. I changed the name of the function that we created to get random creature by type, just because it's a lot more clear as to what it is. And I also changed the category here from TF singleton to TF for the pipe, which is a indicator of a subcategory, and then singleton. Now, a couple of the things I want to do. The first thing I want to do is over in our previous function library, we have this function here, get active message manager. As you can see, it's a singleton function. I want to actually move that over to our singleton function library. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to cut this from that utilities, and we're going to move that over to our singleton. Now that is also going to require the headers that we move over. So we're going to pull that include out because we don't need that there. And again, move this over to our singleton one. And we need to do the same thing with the actual function. Now in here, it's not going to give us the IntelliSense right away because there's some problems there, but I'm going to grab this here and TF utility functions. Going to cut this out. We're going to go over to our singletons. And this is going to throw an error because it's obviously not the utility functions library. We're going to grab this and just copy that and paste it in there. And that's simple as that. We've just moved that function over to, actually, get message manager. That was, where did we have that set? I want to make sure we have that is in our utils. Okay, do we have that in there just to make sure? We don't have. Okay, so I want to include that in here as well, just to make sure. TF utils. That's just to make sure that that function is actually available and it knows how to get it. So. All right, here, what are we going to work on next? Let's see what's on my list. I've got that done, that done, that done. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do, it's actually going to be similar to what we did with, I think it's in our data types. Yeah, so we've got our character defines, we've got our Blackboard key defines. What I want to add in is a file path define. So what I'm going to do here, public data types, add new item. Now in this, you can see it's not going to where it should. We need to make sure that goes into our data type folder. And actually, we want this to be in our public, not our private. Select that. And this is going to be a header file, and this is going to be file path defines. And the whole purpose for this is much like the other defines we've added. I'm just going to quickly add that so I can show you guys. We've got, I've gone through and add comments, but we've got some defines which are basically they're what's called a macro within code. You can reference it Actually, let's do character defines. It's a better one. You can say, you type out death percentile in all caps, and as long as the file you are working in knows about the define, it's going to just instantly go, oh, this death percentile means 0.00f. So 0.005 float. Or byte socket name, it instantly knows, okay, byte socket name means fsocket npc underscore byte socket. And the whole purpose for this is so that going through and making changes to things. So say we want to change this npc byte socket name. We don't have to change it in every single place we've referenced it. We just have to change it in this define. So what we're going to do here, though, if we just take a look, you can see in our other define files, we have include core minimal and include core minimal. So we're going to want to copy that and include that just for the sake here. Include core minimal. And apparently my dogs are getting agitated about something. Now, where I'm going with this is here in the creature factory side, you can see we have this f-string path that we've got a preset path for things. So what I want to do here is define creature file path f-string. And if we take a look how we did that in our character defines, we've got f name, well, it's f-string. F-string, and then trying to think what else we would want. But as we go through and we need to add new file paths, we would add them in here. And this is where I'm going to be going through, and I'm just going to creature factory, there it is, copy this. And this is part of the reason, is I don't want to have to go through and find 100 different places that I've used these preset file paths and have to update them when I go through to, say, do a build where it's like, okay, it is in the game folder / data, for example. So I want to be able to just come in here, do one place. And actually what I want to do here, define creature JSON file, and then define, because I've mentioned it, creature, if I could spell, XML file, F string, and the whole reason for this is actually I want to go through and cut you out. And add those in there. And this whole reason, again, is I want to be able to just go through and, okay, I've decided this is my file path structure or folder structure I'm going to be using for my game. I'm going to have these as the file names, and I come through in here and I make these changes once. So what we're going to want to do here is go back to our creature factory. And I'm not using my own methodology here. I'm getting sloppy. And for anyone wondering, that is, I like to have my tf-utils and my logger as the last two includes, simply because I can just always go look at the bottom. Does this file have logger? Does this file have utilities? And apparently I can't type. And you'll be down here, file path defines. And that's going to be equals creature file, if I could spell, file path plus creature, I just forgot what I named it, creature JSON file. Now this is probably going to throw errors right away. Oh, that's just saying the core, yeah, because we haven't built yet. So we're going to do a quick build just to see if this is going to actually work or if we have any errors that we need to fix. So just while this build runs, I will cover a couple of other things. So on the to-do list, there's quite a few different like minor things that have built up and sort of sat there for a while. I'm not going to go through all of them, just simply because there's a lot of it's going to be repetitive work that isn't useful for, well, helping anyone with moving their projects further along. But I do want to sort of go through, because there's a couple of things in there that if you've been leveraging, say, the temperature system, or if you have been, I can't even remember what's on my to-do list, or you're using the heating system. So there's a couple of things I wanted to go through and cover with those. And then one of the other ones specifically is this little one here. Move this logic into a helper function, ideally on game instance. What that is that is creating a spawn actor function. So, however, I don't want to touch any of that until this build finishes. So it's apparently got quite a bit to build, 73 items. So I'm going to pause the video here and I'm going to be back once this build is done. All right, so that build has actually succeeded. Now, with that, I do need to add a caveat there. As you can see, I opened up a couple of additional files between there. So what had happened is I had updated to Unreal 5.5, well, was it 2? Yeah, 5.5.2. And in that process, I had left Visual Studio open. And it had caused a lot of things to not be found. Things like the core minimal file, because the structures had changed ever so slightly, or a file type or something had changed, or who knows what exactly. But if anyone has that issue, you update your engine version and you've left Visual Studio open, just close Visual Studio, reopen it, and you're good to go. So with that, let's clear some of these files up. I've got way too many open. All right. So in there, you can see we've got our file path defines. That's set up. And if we go back to our creature factory, I shouldn't have closed that one. Oh, what did I put that under? Game? Yeah, game. Creature factory. You can see in here now this is technically working. What I'm going to do, I'm going to throw a breakpoint here, and we're going to just launch the editor quickly to make sure that this is working and that file path is formed correctly. Because if it's not, I need to fix that. So, do we not have that in there? Is that why it's complaining? No, core minimal's there. So, but anyways, so with that, the next thing I want to do after we do this test is I want to, as I mentioned, work on the spawn actor helper function. Now, the reason for that is, again, modding. Also, it sort of, actually, I'm going to put it in utilities, not in the game instance. But anyways, so I'm not sure, actually. I might have to think about that before I do that, thinking about it, because there's a few things I'm not 100% on there. Let's see, what else do I have on my list? Create the timer-based tick for the inventory component. That one we can do. And that is, if we look at our task list here, that is, I think, down the bottom. No. Remove tick, create a 1-second event function. Yeah, so that is what we will do for the inventory component. And that's going to be something where we can just have a Boolean value as part of the configuration. that's going to be things like actor ticks or inventory ticks. And that the reason for that, as you can see in that comment I've got there, that's for things like a fridge or a container that you need to have, actually any inventory to be honest, that is going to have logic around it. Say there's a container you have that I'm trying to think of a good example, a water drum. You can only put liquids in there, and it's something that you're not worried about. It's not going to, for the sake of this game, go bad. Like you got a gas can or something like that. You have an inventory item that only contains a certain type of item. That particular item doesn't expire in any form or go bad. You don't need to worry about having that tick functionality to determine, okay, we need to go through and adjust the inventory, tell it that it's decaying and things like that. So why is this taking forever? Oh, it's, yeah, the update to the engine. It's processing global shaders. So, all right, this is going to take a bit. These shaders take like half an hour on my machine to build the first time. So I'm going to pause the video again, and I'll be back once we actually hit this breakpoint I just threw in there. All right, so I want to clarify, I was a little over dramatic in saying it takes 30 minutes to build that cache, but with that, it only took like 3 minutes total. So in here, we've hit that breakpoint. You can see our path is invalid right now. We hit F10. Our path is now the correct path. And we're going to see that now does contain all of the information we need. So with that, this is going to be, like I say, just the basic setup we've got here. Next thing I actually want to do is go JSON file. What does this return if it's nothing? Actually, I think let's try this. Path equals creature. Why do I need? I'm not going to type that all out again. I want to see if we can get this to. It's obviously not going to work because we need to have this. The XML. Actually, no, I don't even have any of the XML logic, so I'm not going to bother with that. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So, all right, so we've got this basic setup here done where we have our file path defined, sorted out. And as I mentioned, as we go through, we'll add more in. So, next thing we want to do, though, as I mentioned, was sort out this right here. Because we don't need the inventory to tick. So I'm like using actual tick. That is a little extreme. So we're going to turn that off because imagine you're, say, standing in a building that's got like a kitchen, a house. You've got 20, we'll say 20 cupboards in there. That's 20 instances of something that's ticking every frame. You don't want that. That gets a little obscene. So we're going to go through and sort this out. So can ever tick, we're going to change to false. And this is our inventory component. So let's clear these files out. Component, inventory component header. We can get rid of this function. We don't need it. Okay, so edit to blueprint real, save game. We don't need the save game in there, so I'm just going to copy this line quickly. Because this isn't something that's going to be saved. It's going to be in the base actors base class, the default settings. Sorry, brain's not working. Should inventory trying to think how to word this. Decay content. So this is going to be bool. And thinking about this one, we're going to want this to be something that is on by default. So it's going to be B use, has inventory decay equals true. So now that we've got that in there, well, I'm trying to think, where have we used timer functions before? Pickup actor. Sorry, my brain is just all over the place today. And that is because I don't know. But anyway, so in here you can see we have view property F timer handle. That is going to be up here. I'm going to add that to our private. Inventory tick timer. So yeah, inventory tick timer. All right, so we've got that. We want to just use a default of, default of 1. And then let's just take a quick look. I believe that's all we need there. And then the function that is called. So we are going to have that. So it's going to be void tick. Actually, no, this needs to be a public one if I remember correctly, because the timer needs to be able to call it. Did we have that as a U function? Yeah, U function. U function void tick inventory. All right. Let's create that definition quickly. Now, by default, I don't actually have anything in here. I don't believe we set up items that need to decay yet. That's something I want to do. Now, let's see. Okay, so we've done that. And then if we take a look at our pickup actor, and I'm doing this based off the work I've already done. And the reason being for that is quite simply, my brain is, as you've seen and heard, I should say, all over the place right now. And I don't want to start going and messing things up I've already done. So we're going to just copy this here. And you notice that's part of our begin play. So inventory component begin play. Now, obviously, we're going to have some errors in here. We want our inventory tick timer. And then we need to call this function. And I realize I screwed this up. I've got the values mixed up because one of these should be 1. Physics time versus physics timer. So this here should be 1. Yeah, it doesn't need the brackets on the end. All right, so what this is going to do here is every second it is going to call this function. Now, obviously, it's going to be if brain's not working to that extent already. What we want to do here is basically, as part of begin play, it's like, okay, if this is an actor that needs this, we're going to fire off this call to the timer manager to say, okay, every second, let me know that I need to take inventory. And then what'll happen is the timer manager every second will fire that off. So now this is something, it's going to be down to how often you figure you need to have this. So actually I want to do, no, I'm going to make this a property thinking about it, because some of these, like say, as I was mentioning, a kitchen cupboard, you don't want it to tick every second, or a fridge. But things like the player inventory you want. So frequency of decay tick. Float tick frequency, and I'm going to default that to 1. So the reason, anyways, going back to what I was saying, the whole reason for this is, and going back to the tick frequency, is because we have that stored as a variable. We can go through and say we want this to be calculated on a per second basis. So every second an item decays 1%. Well, we can take that 1% decay rate and multiply it by this frequency, so that if we have something that's decaying every 10 seconds or ticking every 10 seconds, it's 10 times the value. If it's every 20 seconds, it's 20 times the value. And then that way you can not have as many actors ticking on the same interval. So my recommendation there is you'd want to do it in like prime number increments. No, because there's still prime numbers without one, not including 1. Because then that way, like you do them in groups, like say you do all fridges are on 11, all freezers are on 7, however you want to do it. And then that way you have these intervals where they're not going to overlap, and you're not going to all of a sudden say, let's say, for example, you had kitchen cabinets on 2 and freezers on 10. Well, every 10 seconds, you're going to have all of your kitchen cabinets and all of your freezers go, because that's one group. So, like the divisible by 2. And yes, that tells you how messed up my brain is right now. I'm going into really weird tangents. But anyway, so now we've got that in place here. This is where we would go through. And actually, let's look at what we've done for items. Item base. Nothing in there. Junk consumable. Did we have that in there? That's where we would add it, would be into consumable. So that's actually a good point where I'm going to end off this episode. I'm going to end things here, having just set up the inventory component timer. And what I'm going to do next episode actually is go through and add in that decay logic and functionality to our items. So from that though, folks, as always, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, or hop over onto Discord and ask your questions there. I try to respond as quickly as I can as soon as I see a notification. For some reason, YouTube's being really weird and I'm not getting all of my comments. I actually have to go through and start looking at them, where I was getting notifications every time I got a comment. But anyways, as always, thanks for watching, folks, and I will see you in the next episode.